An HOA Karen called the cops on my illegal cabin and demanded I'd be arrested for trespassing on my own land. But when the officer asked to see the property deed, her face went white. Because what she didn't know, I don't just own that cabin. I own her house. I own the entire neighborhood. And I was about to teach her the most expensive lesson of her life. Watch until the end to see what happened when I revealed the truth. Smash that like button and subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ for the craziest neighbor revenge stories. Hey everyone, welcome back to Neighbor Wars HQ. If you're new here, this is the channel where entitled neighbors get served the justice they deserve. Hit that subscribe button because today's story is wild. So let me take you back to how this nightmare began. My name is Marcus, and I'm a real estate investor. About 8 years ago, I inherited a massive 47-acre property from my grandfather in what was then a rural area outside Austin, Texas. The land had been in our family for 3 generations, and it included forests, a beautiful creek rolling, hills, and my grandfather's old hunting cabin tucked away in the woods. Now, my grandfather was a smart man. Before he passed, he saw developers eyeing the area and knew suburban sprawl was coming. So he did something genius. He kept 15 acres of the best land for himself, including the cabin and the creek, and sold the remaining 32 acres to a developer. With some very specific conditions, he maintained mineral rights, water rights, and most importantly, he structured the sale so that technically all the homes built on that land would be on long-term ground leases. Here's where it gets interesting. The developer built a beautiful planned community called Whispering Pines Estates. 42 luxury homes, each worth between $800K to $1.2 million. They marketed it as an exclusive gated community with an HOA to maintain property values and community standards. What the homebuyers didn't really understand when they signed their contracts, they owned their houses, but I owned the land underneath them. It was all legal, all disclosed in the fine print. But most people just signed whatever their real estate agents put in front of them. The ground lease payments were rolled into what they thought were HOA fees, and the developer had assured everyone it was just a formality standard for the area. For 7 years, everything was fine. I lived in Seattle, running my investment business. The management company collected the lease payments. The HOA did their thing. I would visit the cabin maybe twice a year for some peace and quiet. My 15 acres were completely separate from the development, accessed by a private road that predated the neighborhood by decades. Then Hurricane Patricia happened. After the hurricane damaged my Seattle condo, I decided to work remotely from the cabin for a few months while repairs were done. It was perfect timing. I could escape the city, reconnect with nature, and get some work done in peace. The cabin wasn't fancy, but it was mine. Rustic wood exterior, a stone fireplace, solar panels I'd installed, a well for water, and completely off-grid. Sat a good half-mile from the nearest house in Whispering Pines, deep in the woods and completely on my property. Enter Brenda Mitchell, the HOA President. I first encountered Brenda on my 3rd day at the cabin. I was chopping firewood outside when I heard a golf cart approaching. This woman, mid-50s, blonde, highlighted hair, designer athleisure wear, and the kind of sunglasses that cost more than most people's monthly car payments, came rolling up my driveway with 2 other women. "Excuse me," she called out, not even bothering with a hello. "This is private HOA property. You need to leave immediately." I stopped chopping and smiled. "I'm sorry, there must be some confusion. This is my property. I'm Marcus Chen. I own this cabin and the land it's on." Her face scrunched up like she'd smelled something rotten. "That's impossible. This entire area is part of Whispering Pines Estates. I'm Brenda Mitchell, HOA President, and I know every property in this community. Brenda, this property has been in my family since 1967. It's not part of your HOA. She pulled out her phone, tapped a few times, and shoved it in my face. It was a map of the neighborhood. It's this area right here. That's Community Forest Preserve. You're squatting on HOA land. I pulled out my own phone and showed her the county property records I always kept handy. Actually, if you look at the official survey, my 15 acres are clearly marked right here. Your Community Forest Preserve is about 200 yards that way, I pointed. East, she barely glanced at my phone. I don't care what your little app says. This is HOA property, and you're trespassing. You have 24 hours to remove this structure and vacate, or I'm calling the authorities. Ma'am, I'm not going anywhere. This is legally my property. You're welcome to check with the county records office. Her face turned red. Are you threatening me? I am the HOA president. I have authority over this entire community. Not over my property, you don't, she huffed. Got back in her golf cart with her equally confused-looking friends and sped off. I thought that would be the end of it. Oh, how wrong I was. Over the next 2 weeks, Brenda made it her personal mission to drive me out. It first came the daily golf cart patrols. Every morning at 7 a.m., she'd drive by with whoever she could recruit, taking pictures of my cabin, my truck, even me when I was outside. She'd yell things like, "We're documenting everything, and the county will hear about this." Then the letters started. Formal HOA violation notices slipped under my door or taped to my truck. Unauthorized structure on community property, $500 fine violation of community building codes. $750 fine unpermitted occupancy, $1,000 fine failure to maintain community. Aesthetic standards, $500 fine. I threw them all in a box. They had absolutely no legal standing since I wasn't part of the HOA. But Brenda wasn't done. She started calling the county. Code enforcement showed up 3 times. Each time, I showed them my property deed, the survey, and my grandfather's original land patents. Each time they apologized for bothering me and told me I was completely in the right. She called the fire department claiming I was burning trash. Illegally, I was just using my fireplace. She called environmental services claiming I was dumping sewage. I had a completely legal septic system. She even called animal control claiming I was running an illegal kennel. Had 1 dog, a sweet golden retriever named Biscuit. Every agency that came out grew more irritated with Brenda's false reports. One code enforcement officer actually told me, "Off the record, ma'am, you might want to consider a restraining order. This woman is clearly harassing you," but the worst was yet to come. Brenda started a social media campaign. She created a Facebook group called Concerned Whispering Pines Residents and posted photos of my cabin with captions like, "Illegal squatter refuses to leave OUR community property. Dangerous vagrant living in unlicensed structure near YOUR children. Working tirelessly to protect your property values from this threat." Some of my neighbors who were technically my tenants, though they didn't realize it, started driving by to gawk. A few even yelled insults. I contacted a lawyer. She reviewed everything and said I had grounds for harassment charges, but suggested I try the diplomatic approach first. So I drafted a formal letter explaining the property situation, including copies of all relevant deeds and surveys, and had it sent to Brenda and the entire HOA board via certified mail. Her response? She forwarded it to the neighborhood Facebook group with the caption, "Squatter now threatening legal action against concerned residents." This is what we're dealing with, people. That's when I decided to attend an HOA meeting. The monthly HOA meeting was held in the community clubhouse. When I walked in, you could hear a pin drop. About 30 residents were there, and Brenda was at the front table with 4 other board members. Her eyes went wide when she saw me. "Excuse me, this meeting is for residents only. You need to leave." "Actually," I said calmly, taking a seat in the back row, "as a stakeholder in this community, I have a right to observe HOA proceedings that may affect my interests." "You are not a stakeholder. You're a squatter on community property." I pulled out a folder. "I have copies of the property deeds, surveys, and tax records that prove otherwise. I'd be happy to share them with everyone here." One of the residents, an older gentleman named Frank, spoke up. "Actually, Brenda, I'd like to see those. This has gotten out of hand." Brenda's face turned purple. "We are not entertaining this nonsense. I move that we proceed with Agenda Item 4, authorizing legal action to remove the unauthorized structure on community forest land." "Second," said another board member quickly. "All in favor?" 4 hands went up. One board member, a younger woman named Jessica, abstained. Motion passes. The HOA will be hiring an attorney to pursue immediate eviction and structure removal. I stood up. "Before you waste thousands of dollars in HOA fees on a lawsuit you'll lose, let me explain something to all of you." "Sit down," Brenda shrieked. You have no right to address this board. Frank stood up too. Brenda let him speak. If he's got proof of ownership, we should see it before we authorize spending our money on lawyers. Several other residents murmured in agreement. Brenda looked like she was about to explode, but she sat down with her arms crossed. I walked to the front and opened my folder. My name is Marcus Chen. My grandfather, William Chen, owned 47 acres of land that included what is now Whispering Pines Estates. In 2016, he sold 32 acres to Mountain Vista Development Corporation. The remaining 15 acres, including the cabin you're trying to remove, stayed in the family. I inherited it when he passed. I held up the deed. This is recorded with the county. It's public record. Anyone can verify it. Doesn't mean anything, Brenda interrupted. That cabin is an eyesore and a danger to property values. Brenda, my cabin is half a mile from the nearest house and completely invisible from any home in this community, but that's not even the interesting part. I pulled out another document. Here's something I bet most of you don't know. When my grandfather sold that land to the developer, he structured it as a ground lease, not a fee-simple sale. Frank's eyes narrowed. What does that mean? It means the developer bought the right to build on the land and sell houses, but the actual land ownership remained with my grandfather. And now with me, the room erupted. Residents started talking over each other. It can't be legal. I own my house. This is fraud. You absolutely own your houses, I clarified. You just don't own the land underneath them. It's all disclosed in your purchase contracts, probably in Section 14, subsection C, if you want to check. Jessica, the board member who'd abstained, was already pulling out her phone. Oh my God, he's right. It's right here in my closing documents. Ground lease payment included in HOA fees. Brenda stood up so fast her chair fell over. This is a lie. A scam to confuse everyone. Don't listen to him. I remained calm. It's not a scam, Brenda. It's a legitimate property arrangement. You pay ground lease fees every month as part of your HOA dues. About $140 of your $400 monthly fee goes to the ground lease. The management company sends it to me. So you're telling me, Frank said slowly, that you're our landlord? Technically, yes. You own your homes. I own the land. The lease runs for 99 years and is renewable. It's very common in planned developments, Hawaii, and many other places. The meeting dissolved into chaos. Brenda tried to regain control, but nobody was listening to her anymore. People were on their phones, pulling up their purchase contracts, arguing with each other. I left my contact information with anyone who wanted to verify the information with their real estate attorneys and went home. I thought maybe finally this would be resolved. Brenda would back down, and we could all move on with our lives. I was making dinner 2 days later when I heard vehicles approaching. Multiple vehicles. I looked out the window and saw 2 sheriffs. Cruisers, lights flashing, coming up my driveway. Behind them was Brenda in her Mercedes SUV. I walked outside with my hands visible. 2 deputies got out, hands on their belts. "Are you Marcus Chen?" one asked. "Yes, sir, I am." "What's this about?" "We received a report of trespassing and a possible illegal structure." "That woman," he nodded, toward Brenda, who was now out of her car with her phone up. "Recording says you're squatting on HOA property." I stayed calm. "Officers, I'm the legal owner of this property. I have all the documentation inside if you'd like to see it." "That's what they all say." Brenda shouted. "He's been here for weeks, harassing residents, making wild claims about owning our land. He's clearly mentally unstable." The second deputy held up a hand. "Ma'am, please let us handle this." He turned to me. "Do you have proof of ownership?" "Absolutely." "Would you like to come inside?" "I have the deed, tax records, survey maps, and a letter from my attorney that explains the entire situation. That would be helpful." As we walked toward the cabin, Brenda followed, still recording. "Officers, I have multiple complaints from residents. He's threatened legal action against the HOA. He's making up stories about owning people's land. He's clearly running some kind of scam." Inside, I pulled out my organized folder. I'd learned to keep everything readily accessible. The deputies reviewed the deed, the survey, the tax bills in my name, and my attorney's letter. The first deputy radioed in to verify the information with the county records office. After a few minutes, he got confirmation. "Ma'am," he said, turning. To Brenda, who had barged into my cabin, "This gentleman is the legal property owner. He's not trespassing. That's impossible. This is community property. According to county records, this is private property owned by Mr. Chen. It's not part of your HOA, but he claims to own all of Whispering Pines, the land under our houses. That's insane." The second deputy looked at me. "Is that true, sir?" "No." I showed him the ground lease agreement. "Yes, officer. The land under the 42 homes in Whispering Pines is owned by me through a ground lease arrangement. The homeowners own their structures. I own the land. It's a legal property arrangement that was part of the original development." The deputy reviewed the documents and nodded. "This appears to be legitimate." Brenda's face went from red to white. "What? What does that mean?" "It means, ma'am, that you filed a false police report. Mr. Chen is not trespassing. It's on his own property. And according to these documents, technically, you're on HIS property right now." No, this is my community. I'm the HOA president, ma'am. You need to leave this gentleman's property now. And you need to stop filing false reports, or you could face charges." Brenda stood there, mouth opening and closing like a fish. Finally, she turned and stormed out, getting into her Mercedes and speeding away. The deputies apologized for the inconvenience, thanked them for their professionalism, and they left. I thought that would be the end of it. But Brenda had one more card to play. 3 days later, I received a formal notice from a law firm representing the Whispering Pines HOA. They were suing me for trespassing on community property, emotional distress to residents, diminishment of property values, harassment of HOA board, members' fraud regarding property ownership claims the demand. Remove my cabin immediately and pay $250,000 in damages. I forwarded it to my attorney. She called me laughing. "Marcus, they have no case. None. This is frivolous. But if you want to end this once and for all, I have a suggestion." "I'm listening." "Remind them exactly who holds the power here." She drafted a response that was delivered to Brenda, the HOA board, and every single homeowner in Whispering Pines. It outlined my legal ownership of all land in the development, the ground lease terms, including the clause that allowed me to terminate leases with 60 days notice for violations, including harassment of the landowner, a detailed record of Brenda's harassment, false police reports and defamation in offer. Drop the lawsuit and Brenda resigns from the HOA, or I begin lease termination proceedings. The response was immediate. The lawsuit was dropped within 48 hours. An emergency HOA meeting was called. Brenda resigned. The entire board resigned with her. A new board was elected. Their first action was to send me a formal apology and invite me to a community dinner, where I could explain the ground lease situation to everyone properly. I accepted. At that dinner, I explained the history, answered questions, and assured everyone their homes were safe. The ground lease was fair, legal, and designed to last for generations. Most people were relieved. Brenda moved out of Whispering Pines 3 months later. I heard she sold her house at a loss because she couldn't stop telling potential buyers dramatic stories about corrupt property arrangements that drove them away. The new HOA president, Frank, that older gentleman from the meeting, occasionally invites me to community events. We're cordial, respectful, professional, and I still live in my cabin, on my land, in peace. The lesson: always know what you're signing. Always verify who really owns what, and never ever mess with someone until you know the full story. So that's the story of how an HOA Karen called the cops on me without realizing. I literally owned her house and the ground it sat on. The look on her face when she found out, priceless. If you enjoyed this story of sweet legal karma, smash that like button. Subscribe to Neighbor Wars HQ for more insane neighbor revenge stories posted every week. Drop a comment below telling me what you would have done in this situation. Should I have been more forgiving, or did Brenda get exactly what she deserved? And hey, if you've got your own crazy neighbor story, send it to us. It might be featured in our next video. Till next time, this is Neighbor Wars HQ reminding you, know your property rights, document everything, and never underestimate the power of actually reading your contracts. Peace out, Neighbor Warriors.